Well, this is going to be a fun matchup because John's up against Kanoa Igarashi and Keanu Asing, two young surfers really staking their claim at the championship tour level. But John has to be the favourite in this heat just based off his lanky style, Ross, those big drawn-out calves.
This is a heat where John can kind of posture a little bit if he wants, spread the wings out, kind of stamp his authority. Take a look at the wind though, Ron. That is getting fresh. It's supposed to pick up a little bit all day long. It's stronger and stronger, maybe even 35 knots today, but it will be offshore as we see Keanu Asing just connecting the dots. That's the key out here at J-Bay. You don't want to get over frothed and start putting turns where they don't belong. It's very easy to over surf this wave, and you can see Keanu now, he wants to really put a stamp on this wave to get a lot of points. You got to show the judges that you have intent to destroy. That's a solid, clean little snap there for Keanu to finish, but overall should just be a medium score.
Love Keanu's flow, always shows great style. So that'd give him some confidence as we see John Florence taking off on his first ride, building speed. Let's see if he can lay into a big turn down the line here. Driving up into this first piece of water. Not overcommitting, wants to keep that flow and maintain speed. Nice little float. This wave's starting to flatten out a little bit, but it will run again through the inside. And John, let's go a more committed turn to finish that ride off.
Well, beautiful swooping carve on that opening turn. Lean into his first effort. And that's the beauty of being here in this venue, Ronnie, at J-Bay. It's all about old school surfing, carves, getting that rail, knifing through the water. Right there, that is textbook. Beautiful carve there. Smart reflexes there from John, realizing he couldn't really finish that snap. The wave was speeding down the line. So it's gonna all be about that first opening hack. Did finish it off nicely though, but for sure he was looking for one more maneuver. And that'll keep the score in check a bit.
You got a lot of wind coming up the face, and you know, you really have to keep it on the face, and with that you want a different board that's going to kind of hold down the line and strong and have enough volume to carry the speed to keep you out in front of the bowl.
Well, we've got John up at the moment, getting a nice little cover up, but can't stamp the floater on the end of this ride, so some points will be lost there. 27 minutes. More manoeuvres from Keanu on his ride than John's. Why the difference in points on the scale as we see a replay of this last ride?
I think John's opening carve was the best move we saw so far in this heat, and that's what allowed the judges to go slightly higher. Beautiful technique. You saw that front arm kind of tuck behind him. Almost looked like a little bit of a Count Dracula stall right there. Pretty cool. Watch it right here. He's going to tuck that front arm in. Opening little snap. Now he sees that barrel on the rocks. And just basically, you know, John's a tall, lanky dude. He's trying to get all his limbs out of the way because it's such a fast, cramped space in there. He needs to, you know, not touch any body parts on that barrel to knife through it. Job well done.
So 26.5 minutes to go. The second score comes through at a 4.5. Florence out in front. Keanu chasing a 4.85. Kanoa Igarashi yet to put a number up. Kanoa enjoying his first trip to Jeffreys Bay. He definitely got his head around the pace of this wave, which is something that a lot of the rookies struggle with here, as we see Keanu having a look at that insider. Here we go, John Florence on the inside without priority. Taps into this one, but it's going to shut down. Quite sectiony out there at the moment, Ross. Difficult to link your manoeuvres right through to the inside at this stage without just racing past some of those fast running sections. A break from travelling on the tour, but now full time with the commentary team. Has your surfing stepped up?
I think it probably has, for sure. You know, you can't help but to get those good habits.
Okay, well here we go. This is Keanu. He's not chasing a big number, only needs a 4.85 to get into the lead. Nice cover up. A little dirty on the exit, but he might make up for it here as he pulls in once again. Nice compact style into a smooth, well-paced roundhouse cutback. Can he come through this section and add some big numbers? Doesn't look like he will. And right behind him, we've got Kanoa Igarashi on his first wave. He's trying to get some speed up. He tucks into the barrel. Just pops through the bottom of this one. Now trying to stay out in front of this ride as it really starts to reel off. Drifts that tail. Maintaining control and looking for more on the inside. A clean barrel and a nice big exit for Kanoa to reappear. And he almost sticks that float to finish, but he would have collected some nice points down the line then.
What a crazy wave. And that was such a golden ticket right there for Kanoa. Again, you know, this is not by mistake, folks. He does it event after event. He stays patient. He waits for the best wave. A couple little bobbles in that wave, but definitely the best score so far, I'm thinking.
Well, here is John Florence just a little further down the line in order to get himself in the perfect position for this ride. Starts off with a nice big carve. He can't afford to blow this ride as he drives up into this section, getting some speed. He'll brake for a moment and find some cover. Reappears for a moment and then back into the tube. An awkward snap under the lip. Just trying to make that adjustment after a very short bottom turn.
Yeah, he knew that wave was going to come to a finish there right before the point and tried to just kind of force a under the lip snap there. So it was going to be always a very difficult section to finish with.
But we're waiting on the scores to come through for Kanoa Igarashi, expecting a solid number for him as we tap into some replays here.
Well, what I love about this wave, it had a very good angle on it. It wasn't too straight where it was closing out. It kind of rolled down the entire point. And this wave just got better and better. Nice aggressive snap there, getting some fins released out the back. And this is where the wave got thick. Look at that barrel right there. That is definitely going to get the judges' attention. And then finishes off with the floater, but he couldn't hang on and he fell. That'll keep the score in check just a little bit, but that wave was an absolute dream. I do feel like he left maybe a point and a half on the board there. I think it was his first wave, so he was just trying to find his feet. John, nice wide section here. He took off further down the point. Great barrel here, and John, one of the best in the world at maxing his tube time. He knows how to stall and speed up when he needs to. But there was that awkward finish there where he got stuck between two different moves, tried to kind of force it with the under the lip jam. And that'll be frustrating for John because he really wanted to put that wave to sleep with a really solid finishing maneuver. This was actually the first wave of the set from Keanu Asing there, and just a couple of racy little barrels. Judges won't get too excited about that. They want to see those square, thick ones. And that barrel right there was better, but it closed out.
Well, back to live action now, and Keanu Asing accelerating down the line and just setting up this section. This wave isn't super hollow, but Keanu manages to put himself inside the pit, coming out, letting go of a nice snap. Another brief cover up. And he'll look to add some points on rail here. But he can't get enough of the tube at this stage. Tucks in once again, big float to finish. And he will stamp the finish with a nice float.
The wind, it's going to make your board unstable. So a barrel is not a bad option for just kind of playing it safe and locking in a score. And it is side offshore, so that wind also, it's good for blowing up those little barrels. If that was glassy, you probably wouldn't even look at it because the wind is so stiff. It's opening these little barrels up a little wider than normal. But against a smaller wave, those first couple barrels were more or less head dips. This one's a little more square. But I think, you know, so far, Keanu's best score at 6.8 probably be his highest score.
Ran down the line here very nicely. This wind seems to be helping conditions, maybe making it a little tougher for competitors on the open face. But just holding these lines up nicely as we see John Florence deep in the tube, and he's not going to find an exit here. And that's going to hand priority over to Kanoa, who is at the takeoff zone with a wave approaching and has a good opportunity to seize the lead here. Only needs a 5.07. He's going to pull through the back of that one, just a little too deep.
Thought that was pretty clever, actually. You know, he maybe could have stuck to it and tried to get around it, but he wanted to.
He looked pretty sharp in tricky conditions. He got the jump on Alejo Munez and Connor Coffin. Italo Ferreira in the second heat of round one, got the win. Top seeds flaring on day one, as we see Keanu there just catching a rail riding out of that maneuver. One of those competitors that's always asking other surfers about these locations, as we see Kanoa now looking to back up that big 8.17. Solid start, gets his board on rail. Those free surfing sessions prior to the contest are really paying off for the 18-year-old. And he has found a beautiful ride here. And just trying to really finish strong. Bringing it right through to the inside. A huge tail drop floater, but again, can't stick the final maneuver. And that's going to cost him. He sort of needed that big finish, Ross, because a couple of the turns on that wave didn't probably pan out the way he would have liked.
I agree. I think even on his 8.17, he left about almost a point on the board there, just trying to link his maneuvers. Got caught up just a little bit, but he had such a nice tube ride that the wave still went excellent for him. But let's see exactly what went well and what went wrong for Kanoa on this wave. Again, that offshore wind, pretty tough, but that was a really nice carve right there. Judges will be stoked on that. Got a lot of rail in there, engaged, so a beautiful snap there, throwing a ton of spray. There's that turn that was just, he had to cut it short because the wave was so fast. Another one there that he cut short, so smart surfing. But I agree with you, Ronnie, it would have been very nice for him on the pallet if he could have finished that wave on his feet.
Fast through those maneuvers, just wants to put a little bit more power into each of those turns to collect some more numbers down the line.
See that right there, judges reviewing waves, so they're trying to compare scores, what's already dropped. This is where the scale has set. So a 7.17 right here for John, that number's already in. So they're saying, okay, this is where the scores lay in this heat. Let's compare them. Which wave is better? And so last wave here for Kanoa, now that they got that number digested from John, they can compare the two. Is it better or is it worse? And a couple of, that snap right there, by far his best maneuver on the wave. And then a lot of connecting the dots from here on. The wave is fast, check turn, another check turn. Another thing that's kind of funny for Kanoa is he's a back-footed surfer, so a lot of those snaps, he kind of almost stalls a bit. Think of a Mick Fanning where he's putting so much pressure and weight on his front leg. That's why he accelerates and gets that torque through his carves. Kanoa, more of a lanky back-footed surfer. And that's what allowed him, or didn't allow him to kind of get that hefty carve through the midsection.
Well, his wave selection has been perfect throughout this heat so far. Very patient through the opening stages of this heat, and his rivals weren't really able to put the kind of numbers up that shut him out. He waited for the best wave, got an 8.17, and he's just backed it up with the second highest scoring ride of this heat, a 7.47. So he is just wave selecting Keanu Asing and John Florence to death. 15.64, and John Florence is chasing a big number to get into first, an 8.47. Keanu Asing needs an 8.81. And here is John's chance. He's going to commit to this ride. A little transition float to find this section. And he's going to tuck into the barrel. Not a super deep tube. Needs a huge finish down the line here to get the appropriate score, but he's not going to get it. And with 3.5 minutes to go, it's going to be hard to get back to the top of the point. And this heat, maybe more than any other in the first round, I think had a really clear favourite on paper. But Kanoa has been turning around these really tough heats all season, and it looks like he might do it again here in round one.
Yeah, just such a smart surfer, Kanoa. And here's John. A smaller wave, you know, maybe with 3 minutes to go, you could tear that apart a little bit, saying, hey, maybe he should have been more patient, but tough for him, you know, to let that wave go because it did have a nice line on it. It looked like it was going to cooperate for him and not close out, and that's not conducive for those big airs.
2 minutes to go. Let's look back on how Kanoa Igarashi put John Florence and Keanu Asing up against the ropes.
Yeah, again, look at that wave. That is square. So, you know, this is a 8.17. Huge score here for Kanoa, and he waited a long time. Give him so much credit for that. I think he waited about 12 minutes for this wave. So he had a wave in mind. You talked about how he's been getting some insights from Wits, Tommy Whitaker, and I think it paid off. They had a plan. Hey, just wait for the bombs. Don't try to outsurf John. You know, one of arguably the best surfers in the world right now. put yourself on the bombs, and it's exactly how this heat unfolded for him.
Nice turn there. That was probably Kanoa's strongest maneuver throughout this heat. But he just flowed down the line on this one to get himself a good backup score, 7.47.
That's the thing about Kanoa, is he's solid. He reminds me a lot, I think for him, for Kanoa, you know, avoiding, it's huge. You get only 500 points if you lose in the second round as opposed to 1750. Big discrepancy between those two results right there. Just one round, but you have to avoid losing and getting that equal 25th, and Kanoa's done a great job of that.
Was he in your fantasy team?
No, Kanoa was not in my fantasy team, but you know, coming into this heat, like you talked about, John, obviously a heavy favorite, but I knew that Kanoa was going to be tough to beat out there. He's on a day like today with this tide that's low. It choked the swell out a bit. It was pretty slow. You knew he was going to put together a couple of scores.